nice streak going on there. I was hitting those lives week after week after week, but I was traveling last week. I was up in Manchester. I've already posted one of the videos on the channel from that trip. I think I have about 1 or 2 more that's going to come out from that trip. I had the great opportunity to stop by a couple of garden centers, and specifically a couple of tropical plant shops. I love going to those local tropical plant shops. If I can find them, I always step into them to go and check them out, see what plants they have. Hey, speaking of that, I was able to pick up this philodendron white princess. I picked this up in one of those garden centers, one of those garden shops, tropical shops that I stopped at. I think this came out of Nice Things in Manchester. And there's a beautiful shop. The coloration, the way they've designed the shop, the overall aesthetic is kind of just giving a soft, creamy vibe. And it is such a wonderful plant shop to step into. Knowledgeable staff. I think I already posted a video about that with Nice Things there in Manchester. But I picked this up. Philodendron white princess. Again, it's just something about that variegation. But you see this leaf here, you see a white coming in there really well. Here's another leaf. It's got a bit of nice white on that one as well. And so this is a really beautiful. Okay, so my live dropped. It happens. This is what happens when you go live sometimes. I guess it drops. All right, it looks like I'm back. This live just keeps going in and out. I'm trying to get this set up, but it really just keeps dropping. This is the second time it's dropped. If it drops once or twice more, then I'll have to cut this. I really want to stay on live here, but if it's just not working, it's just not going to work. All right, what I'm going to do is I have these petunias, which are phenomenal little plants. I picked these up a couple weeks ago from the garden center, and these are annuals, right? You buy them every spring. And you can get them in seeds. I have some seeds as well, but these were some that I thought were really nice. And I wanted to get them. But the cool thing is they're already grown out. Of course, it's way too cold to set them outside right now. You have to wait till that last chance of frost is over. And even then, I'd probably still give it a week or so. You definitely don't want to get this outside right now. But what I do want to do is get them out of these little growing pods. Now, this is really cool. It has the picture of what that flower is going to look like. It has some details about the plant. It's a spreading plant. It doesn't grow tall. It just kind of grows and spreads across the ground like a ground cover. Part to full sun, protect from frost. That's the key thing. But they plant them, and this is really cool. Look at this. They plant it in these little, this is core. But this stuff, it just dries out so bad. So if you skip a day or two where you don't get this little plant watered, it's going to dry out on you. Before you know it, it's dead. And so I want to get this out of, I'm not going to take it out of this little block. I'm going to leave it, but I want to get some soil around it. Now this is a nice little compostable, this is a bamboo pot, compostable. I bought these a couple years ago. They're supposed to last 5 years. This is like year 2 for me. And after 5 years, they'll break down and you can compost it. So it's not adding to plastic waste in the garden or anything like that. But I want to just kind of pot these little petunias up. This is just until after the risk of frost. You want to buy some of these now. If you make it to your garden center, pick them up, go ahead and buy them. But make sure you're paying attention to what the conditions are for the plant. So if you're talking about going to the garden center and you want to pick up some daffodils, that's fine. They can handle the cold. And then you get tulips that's already starting to sprout. That's fine. But this is not a spring garden plant. This is a summer plant. That's a nice little petunia. And you know what? I'm going to plant all these pretty much in the bed together or in some of my pots. But just for now, I will just flatten this out. And I'll stick this in the side of the pot just so I'll know still what the coloration will be in case I decide I want to design it. And I will water this in. Yep, has little drainage holes in this pot. And that's what it looks like now. That's all I'm going to do. Just take these. I wanted to buy them now. They're growing now. They look really good. Yeah, I love trying to watch out for the environment. Thank you. Hen Dog. It's a cool name. And so, bamboo pot, just repotting these petunias. And it's really cool. Again, they're summery. They're really pretty, but they're summery. And they just They can't take any type of cold, can't take any of it. If it gets any frost or anything cold on these guys, they're gone, and you will have to buy them all over again. Now this one is Petunia Thumbelina Diana. It's just kind of a white, creamy white color. This one's kind of purpley. And I love, actually, personally, I like double blooms. And those are going to be the blooms on plants that you see the flowers. And so there are roses that have 5 petals. And those are single, 5-petal roses. And they look really well. They look good. And then there are the roses that you can buy that are floribundas. Actually, that's more not so much what the flower looks like. That's just kind of how the growth pattern. But there are also roses that you can buy that look like the roses that you hand out on Valentine's Day. Those tend to be not floribundas. What are those? I don't know. My mind just went blank on me there for a second. But there are those designs of roses, and then there are the Old English roses, which are really blousy and have a lot of petals. And so when I look to buy my roses, I'm actually looking at how many petals does it have. Hybrid teas, those are the ones that you hand out for Valentine's Day. It took me a minute. I don't know why my brain just kind of froze up. But hybrid teas are the type of petal of roses that you hand out, and they're really pretty, tight. It's tight blooms, and they look really great. But I like Old English roses, which are those fat, blousy blooms. One of my favorite plants is peonies, because they have most of them have these big blousy blooms, just a lot of petals. So I wanted to buy petunias that have a lot of petals. You can see all those extra double petals in there. It just looks really full, and that's what I was aiming for this year. Now this growth pattern is more of a classic petunia, just that normal single petal. I think it's probably going to be 5 petals, but they're not stacked in there. They're not multiple petals layered on top of each other. So I have a little bit of both. And then of course, you're thinking about your colors, like what color flowers do you want? And if you want to put these in a pot, you can put them in a pot, because they will grow over the side of the pot, and then they will trail down, and it'll look really good if you were to do it that way. Or you could put them on the ground, in the ground, and they will grow and give you what you call ground. The risk of frost in your gardens. Don't let them dry out too much, though. They do need a bit. I'm talking specifically about petunias. They do need a bit of watering to make sure that they can make it through the whole year, especially when you get to those, what they call those dog days of summer. When you get to those long, hot, dry summer days, this plant will do really well, but it will need a bit of frequent water, probably about once or twice a week. Just to make sure, know your growing conditions. If it doesn't rain much where you are, if you're getting a lot of rain, then you won't need to water as much. You also don't want to spoil your plants too much. You can over water, and you can make your plants really used to getting a lot of water. So I've done this before. I'm gonna be very diligent. I water on Monday, I water on Wednesday, I water on Friday, back out there again on Sunday, and I'm watering again. I'm just making sure those plants. And then when your plants get used to that much water, and let's say you go away for a week or something happens and you're not able to do that, those plants will suffer a lot more. You got them a little too adjusted to that much water. So you don't want to overwater them. You want those plants to kind of have to fight a little bit for themselves. And if you can make sure, like, if you have an in-ground irrigation system, I guess you can go ahead, but definitely do that. And you will get a lot of better growth if you're going to give them more water. But just kind of know what your limits are as a gardener. And what I mean by that is, know what your time is. How much time do you have to commit to this? Like, I only go live basically once a week, because that's the amount of time that I have that I can commit to this. And so with everything we're gardening, these are living plants. And if you don't give them what they need, the right conditions, then unfortunately they won't survive. But you know what you can do to take care of them and how much time you have to allocate towards that. So I've done this before, where I've went out and I bought too many plants. It does happen. You can go buy too many plants. And so you go to the garden center, you see them at Walmart, Target. If you're in the UK, you see them at the garden center, wherever. And you're like, oh, I want this one, this one, this one, this one. You get them and you take them home, and then you kind of sit them in the garage or sit them outside. And you have to come back, and then you have to go and plant them, because just having them, right, you have to still turn around and get them into the ground. Even if you buy seeds, you have to plant those seeds, and you may kind of set it aside and you look around and, uh-oh, the plant died. You didn't water it or you didn't get it into the ground. So make a commitment to yourself. If you're going to get into gardening, just try to know your limits. If you can only care for one plant, buy one plant. I would suggest 2 or 3 because plants can be finicky. One can die. So buy it in 3s, right? But you don't have to feel the need. Look at this. I only picked up like 1 tray of petunias. I didn't pick up 10 trays. I would love to, but I know I don't have time to care for them like that. Not that many of them. And so this is all going to be based on your gardening space. Are you gardening on a patio? Are you gardening in your yard? What type of space do you have? Do you just have a windowsill? Those things will determine which plants you can grow and which plants you want to grow. So if you know that you only have a small space and a limited amount of time, then you can still have something really pretty. I would suggest then that you think about what's your favorite color, what's your favorite plant, and can you meet the growing conditions for that plant, and maybe just 1 or 2 of them, and you just put them in a pot. Pots are really cool, especially outdoors. You have a nice pot, it rains, it just looks really good. You don't have to water the day that it rains. So there are a lot of great things you can do with plants in a pot, especially on a patio. However, when they're in the pot, you do have to remember to water them. Now, I have some really cool pots that I bought that have trays built into the bottom of the pot. And so when I water really heavy and the water collects at the bottom of the tray. And as the soil dries out, the water wicks back up into the soil. It just buys me more time in between watering, but that doesn't mean I can endlessly not water that plant. Here's this next one. You still have to be thoughtful about when was the last time it rained or when was the last time I watered. And then as far as letting the rain water your plants, unfortunately, if you're just looking at the amount of rain that falls, a lot of that runs off and won't soak into the ground. Unless it's, a downpour, you may not be getting quite as much rain as you'd think. This is another one, really blousy. Look at that. Just all those petals stacked in there. I just think that that's gonna look really good. It's just the way I like to grow them. Those are the ones that I like. Okay, another pot here. So petunias are nice, annuals. I'm gonna repot here in just a moment a perennial. This guy right here. This is a dahlia here in the UK. And it's just really nice. It has those burgundy leaves and these kind of red and orange blooms. I'm gonna get this into a pot. I bought this in the garden center a couple weeks ago. And to be honest with you, it's not looking so good. It's drying out in this bag. This room has a really high heat because these are all tropical plants behind me. And so I'm getting concerned that the bulb will dry out and die. So I'm gonna get that in a pot because I really don't want that to die. I spent money for it. Is that 4 pounds? So I definitely don't want it to die on me. So I'm gonna go ahead and get that in some soil. Again, can't take the cold. Way too cold right now. We're into March, which we're getting much closer to that spring period where it's gonna warm up. Now it depends. I'm here in the UK, right? So I'm in England, and where I am, it is still too cold to talk about setting plants outside. I can't set plants outside yet. Definitely not these summer plants. But when I talk to my mom on the phone, she's in the United States and she's back in Arkansas, and she's telling me that her daytime temperature is around 70 degrees. And that's great, right? So maybe you could get this outside. But I had to ask you, what is your last frost date and what are your nighttime temperatures? Because that's really where your problem is going to come in. So let's switch over. I have a couple more petunias to get in the pot, but I'll come back to those because I want to get this dahlia in the pot before I forget about it. Now this pot is nice, terracotta ceramic. I had a question asked me the other day, what's my favorite pot type? And terracotta is classic. Like, people have been using these literally for about 2,500 years. And the first terracotta sculpture, I think oldest that they found is like 26,000 years old. This is something insane. But terracotta has been around for a long time. These pots are great. The aeration is good. The drainage is good, and they're just really wonderful pots. They're classic. They grow. They really use these. What you get out of these growth-wise is really good. Even if it breaks, you could take the pieces, put it in the bottom of another pot, and still utilize it. Terracotta is classic. But indoors, I'm semi-hydroponic. Outdoors, Most of my outdoor pots are terracotta, some are plastic. Yeah, that's dried out really bad. It has a tiny, you won't even be able to see it. Maybe. There's a tiny little sprout like coming out right there, a little green, probably actually purple, little purple leaf coming out right there. But this is feeling bad. It's feeling really dry. So I have to get some moisture on this really quickly. So dahlia are perennials, but they're more what I would call a tender perennial. Meaning if you're gonna get way down below freezing or spend a lot of time below freezing in your area, this bulb may actually die. So a lot of people lift this bulb in the fall. It looks just like this. They'll lift it out of the ground, put it in a cool shed, garage, under the stairs, someplace just where it can stay cool and dry, and they'll lift it and kind of let it go dormant, and then they'll replant it back out in the spring. This area where I am right now doesn't tend to go much below freezing through the winter. So I've actually had dahlia that I've had outside for about 3 years, and they've come back year after year. Also mulch my beds really hard, so that creates a little bit of insulation so it doesn't get quite as cold. Now, again, this is an extremely temporary pot. You would normally not want to ever put a bulb so large in here, right? Because all those little bulblets together are going to fill this pot up. This is going to start to grow. It's going to become root bound really, really quickly. But it's cool because I only need to keep this in this pot for another month or so. I think my frost date is probably maybe 2 months. And I think I can keep it in this pot because first it has to come out of dormancy, which is already starting to break dormancy. Then it's going to put out a couple shoots, and it's going to start putting out some roots. So by the time it goes through that whole cycle, it'll be close to when I want to be ready to set this outside. And so this is going to be really great. I think I may keep it in a larger pot, or I may plant it in the ground. But right now, this is just to keep it alive. I just don't want it to die on me. I have another one here as well. Look at that. Is this Black Beauty? No, this is Black Touch. Large, blousy, look at that burgundy. And the foliage, I think on this one is more of a green foliage. So the leaves are going to be green, more of a green color from what I can see on this picture. But it's just these big, beautiful, look at that bloom. All those petals. I really love it. I just think this is a magnificent plant. I didn't used to like dahlia because the growth habit of the plant, meaning like what the plant actually looks like, doesn't look that way. I got 2 of those in here. Does it say 2? Yeah, I got 2. Here's 1. Here's 2. Just look at those, they're like little potatoes. Not very attractive right now, but again, they're drying out. This room is really dry. The humidity is 34%, so that's pretty low. Like I said, this room is really dry. I have like a fish tank in here, but this room is still really, really dry. And these, I could just tell, they're looking crispy, crunchy, crackly, and they're starting to bud out here on the top. The top of this one has some little purple specks. They're starting to bud out. But if I don't get this plant, this one is budding out. I don't see anything on this one. Hopefully I didn't already lose it. It looks really dry. It really does. But that's the reason I'm getting these in these pots real quick. Hopefully I can save them. Yeah, I didn't care for dahlia. I mean, for a very long time. I didn't really like them. The plants look like weeds. They grow, and it's just not a very attractive plant. So Hermicalis, which in the U.S. is, and I think they use the same name here in the U.K., which is commonly called a daylily. I love the growth habit. It's these leaves. It looks quite a bit like the Agapanthias. Let me see. I said Agapanthias blooming. So this is an Agapanthias, And it is not an indoor plant. It is a South Africa, I think is where they originate from, but it is not an indoor plant. I bring them in and it actually bloomed. But the blooms, look at this stem, the center of the stem, and here are the blooms. It's blooming right now. It has 2 stalks. One's gone over a little bit already. I think the kids stepped on it. So that's pretty much bloomed out. But this is Agapanthus. I love the foliage. I just like the way the plant grows and then it falls and it gets more full and it just looks like this, and it's really, really beautiful. So Agapanthus looks like this. Hermicalis, which are daylilies, is another phenomenal plant. One of my favorite plants of all times are daylilies because they're warriors, right? They're so easy to grow a daylily. If you don't keep them in full sun, they may not bloom for you, but it's almost impossible to kill them. It's really hard to kill a daylily. You have to do some things really wrong to kill a daylily. But Agapanthus, also a pretty strong bulb, can last. But look at this foliage. I love the way it just grows, like these long strappy leaves up, and then they fall over. So I love the way this looks. And if this was outside, this would be more upright. It just doesn't have quite enough light in here. It will bloom again. And that's fine. I'll set it out as soon as it gets warm enough, this is going to go back outside. But I just wanted to show you an example of the type of foliage that I like. This foliage looks really good to me. I like it. Hermicalis, daylilies, Agapanthus, what is this? Lily of the Nile, calla lily, which I have over there in the corner. I'm not going to bother getting it. It looks a lot like this. I love the way those plants look because they just look really cool. This dahlia, I don't like the way the plant looks. It looks like a weed. It just looks weedy. It does. Now the blooms are absolutely beautiful. And you see, I'm putting 2. You would not normally do this. Again, this is a temporary pot. They will not live here for long, just a couple months. This is just so this plant, I can water it and it doesn't dry. These bulbs are just drying out and I just don't want to dry out. But this is not what you'd want to do. You just no way. You would not want to constrain this plant like this. This is extremely temporary, just a couple months to break dormancy and to get past the risk of frost. Yeah, don't like the way dahlia look, but the blooms are undeniable. And then they're late summer. That's the other thing you have to think about when the flowers or when the plant's going to be blooming. A lot of these dahlia will bloom late summer. And then around that time of year, your roses are kind of dying back and some of the other things are not looking as good. But these will fill up your perennial border and bloom late summer. There you go. And so I have those in a pot. This is in a pot. It's a little tight, not as low in the pot as I would like. Again, temporary, but just repot it. And I will water these. I don't want to water them down. I'm going to sit these in a tray, sit it in a windowsill and water it. So you go to a garden center. You don't always have to do this. But if you go to a garden center and you know, Walmart, Lowe's, Home Depot, they all have these bulbs right now. And you go and you decide to buy some. And if you put them in your garage or in a place that's kind of cool, they could be okay. Another one, cannas, is another one that looks really good. They sell a lot of canna bulbs. And you can buy it, and those bulbs maybe. Now there are some that are more bulby and they can do okay. So elephant ears, it takes them a lot longer to dry out. They're really large bulbs. You can buy those at Walmart. They have a lot of them, are smaller bulbs. And they can last much longer than these dahlia. The way this growth pattern is here, these will dry out. Some of those are bulbs, others will last much longer. And unfortunately, without knowing each specific plant, you wouldn't know which ones will or which one won't. You just have to kind of keep an eye on them. They do take these plants out, dry them out, put them in a dormancy, package them up. They look really cool, but you know, this is not the proper growing conditions for a plant, right? It's pretty, but this is this transport medium. This is just to get the plant from the grower, from the nursery to you. They really just can't stay in there very long if you wanted to grow. So I would suggest that you buy these, and with the thought process of how long is it going to take me to get it out of the plastic? The plastic just isn't good. It has holes in there, so it's not airtight. You don't want that because it'll kill it really quickly. But still, this is not the growing conditions for a plant. These are the growing conditions for a plant. So it's what I'm doing this year just to make sure the bulbs that I buy don't die. I am actually going to take all the bulbs that I buy, if I buy any others, and I'm gonna bring them home. And even if it's too cold to go outside, this is what I'm gonna do. Pot them up. The petunias, it's actually a really tender plant, especially this early in the year. These little plants, they can't. You let these things go too many days without water, and it's over. So, you can set all this aside here. Okay, so I got kids calling me, guys. I want to go on. I would love to set up and continue to do something else, but I cooked dinner tonight. It's done, and they're probably in there waiting on me. So I wanted to do a longer live, but I'll have to catch it next week, and hopefully you can jump back in here. I try to do them 7:30 British Standard Time. I'm in British Standard Time, and I try to jump on 7:30 BST every Sunday. That's what I'm aiming for, and I've been pretty good around that time. A little earlier, a little later, but that's what I'm aiming for. So if you could jump in next week with me, that would be great. Until next time, over the next week, do have a good weekend. Take care.